Uh, the rise of mobile and the success of e-tailers have clearly made the case for leveraging internet to most retailers. Digital is now the new frontier to conquer. However, good old-fashioned supply chain has remained firmly entrenched in the physical world. Customers may engage with you digitally, but you still need to ship products to them or process a return. The interplay between digital and physical mediums during a transaction is what's now being called phygital. So how are retailers preparing to go phygital? What's their outlook on digital? What are the hot new technologies they are investing in? How are they re-engineering their processes to meet customer expectations? What keeps them awake at nights? Let's find out. I'm happy to invite my panel. Can I have on stage Mr. Devdas Nair? Devdas has 28 years of experience in retail supply chain. Since the last 20 years, he has been working with Shoppers Stop Limited as the head of supply chain and logistics. Welcome, Devdas. Dr. Anant Mahale has over 23 years of industry experience in supply chain management, especially in the consumer goods and retail industry. He has a chemical engineering degree from IIT Mumbai and a PhD from Princeton University. Anand's career started in the US and he has a number of US patents to his credit. Welcome, Anand. Colonel Vijay Nair is a veteran. He is popularly called Colonel. He has over 2 decades of experience in the Indian Army, especially in HRD, operational logistics and training. Colonel was responsible for setting up of domestic and import supply chain network for food and grocery, general merchandise and fashion for Hypercity in his earlier employer. He is currently with Reliance Digital and working on restructuring and modernizing their distribution and logistics network to support the fast-paced expansion. Welcome, Colonel. Please welcome Mahesh. Mahesh is Director for Strategy and Innovation at Target. In his current role, he is responsible for business insights and analytics for Target's global supply chain and stores. He also leads the Target Accelerator Program and innovation efforts in India. As one of the key mentors of this program, he guides early-stage startups to develop concepts that have the potential to improve Target's business and broader retail industry. Welcome, Mahesh. Mahesh, there are a lot of startups here. Hope you bought plenty of business cards. Please put your hands and welcome Vineet. Vineet is part of the core team at Jabong. He has a master's in industrial and systems engineering from the University of Florida. Welcome, Vineet. Last but not the least, Gyaneshwaran, VP Service Delivery at Quicksilver. Gyan has 23 years of work experience. Earlier, he was with IBM as retail industry leader. Gentlemen, just to set the context, we have 4 retailers and 2 solution providers. So to set the context, why don't we just start off and go through the panel and discuss what really phygital means for you and your customers. I invite the retailers to do that first, and then the solution providers to pitch in with their comments.
Phygital is nothing but creating an ecosystem for between the consumer and brand. Across physical and digital vertical. So that is a phygital for us.
Okay, Vijay.
All these years, when I've come to Arctic conference, I was sitting over there listening to the new technology. Now I find myself sitting over here, and when this topic of phygital came, the first thing I did was to Google it, to find out what phygital was, because we are more used to supply chain terminologies. Now, coming to my take on what Phygital would be, is that over the last few years, the customer behavior has drastically changed. Now, he's not really differentiating between online and offline shopping. What Phygital does is takes the benefits of the physical area and the advantages of the digital and puts it together. What it does for supply chain is that it enhances the expectations of the customer, making our life more challenging.
Very similar. So ultimately, as a consumer, they don't care what channels you operate in. For them, it is about when they want to shop, how they want to shop, where they want to shop, they want to shop. And for a retailer, it's about enabling that by engaging them across all your footprints. And to seamlessly and effectively do that is what a good phygital retailer's goal should be.
Hey, so Phygital for me is where clicks meet the bricks. That is how we call it at Jabong. And wherever there is a operational intervention which can be improved by technology or better usage of information that is available to help the customer, help improve the customer experience or create a wow. That is how we apply technology to improve the operations. Essentially, that is what we call Phygital.
Okay, as a solution provider, right, there's a very fundamental thing that I would want to place here in front of you. Right. So we have advanced markets and we have the developing markets. Right. So what happens in the developing market is we try to adopt what has been already done in the developed markets out here. But by the time you even mature, the maturity cycle in a developing market is far lower than in the advanced markets. Right? So even before you complete half the cycle, there is a disruption that is happening because we are again importing something back that has been already developed and tested and tried out in an advanced market. So as a solution provider, right, the disruption continues to happen. As we keep providing solutions, we again go back in time. You're 2 steps forward and you're again back 1 step. Right? So this is a continuous challenge that the industry is facing today.
Yeah, I think, hello? I would agree with more or less what everybody's description has been. Difficult to add on top of it, but from a technology standpoint, I'll kind of throw in a couple of ideas in terms of what the challenges are. As Vijay pointed out, it's a lot of expectation that you're trying to meet today because the end consumer is more educated. He's got the ability to reach out to you very fast. He's got the ability to look around and see and compare, and he wants certain things on his agenda. So from a fulfillment perspective, the big challenge is how do you get the entire machinery to work behind the scenes to make sure that the end consumer is happy. So what does it mean? It means very, very fast response to the consumer's needs, and at the same time, the ability to monitor, track, and alert yourselves and your entire mechanics if something's going wrong, so that you can respond very rapidly. To me, that is what the big challenges are, and that's what this all means.
Okay. So customers are increasingly choosing to interact with retailers digitally, right? And Devdas, you have 28 years of experience in supply chain. So what are the things that you really had to unlearn in order to meet the expectations of this phygital customer?
It's a tough one because whatever learning I have actually had in the last 28 years of my journey in the physical world of supply chain is definitely going to help me in the new journey of digital and from there to the ultimate objective of the omni-channel. But one thing is definitely we have to unlearn is that today if you ask me in our distribution center for small initiation or small decision making, we will always ask them to take approval in the supply chain department. For everything they need to come to the corporate office and take an approval. I don't think that would work in the digital world. Digital world has to work like a factory. It has to be a well-oiled engine. Okay, the decision has to be taken and go on. Okay, it has to be actually, they have to be empowered to take decisions. I think that part we need to completely unlearn, and the fulfillment center has to be in a position to take whatever decision they are supposed to take on a daily basis.
You see that you're seeing that as a challenge now?
I mean, currently we have a process that, for everything we insist for an approval. I think that part we need to completely unlearn and, make them empowered.
Okay. So, Vijay, completely contrary question to you. 20 years in the army, right? And army specializes in moving large amount of equipment in extremely small amounts of time. Actually sounds like Flipkart on Big Billion Day, right? So what lessons from the army is really, that you are taking forward to meet the expectations of this phygital customer?
See, while the country has moved ahead, so has the technology in the army improved. Today, army also to a very large extent is digitized in most of its methods of transactions. So if I have to correlate the two things, first thing we have is that the availability and the correctness of the inventory, which is the base factor, and the visibility of this particular inventory across the chain, across the customers, across all channels by which the retailer intends to move it. The next activity which will come into that is the physical transaction of pick, pack, dispatch, and the last mile of actual delivery, and concluding with the return. All this is done to perfection in the army because of the very strict processes and the very compliant supervision and absolute discipline that goes into it. So this is one aspect. If it can be inculcated across the chain, primarily is a large amount of training and leadership work. I think that is what is the success factor of not only of just this getting the phygital fulfillment through, but also any activity that is done in the supply chain or in the other fields of retailing.
Anant, Vijay mentioned that visibility of information across the supply chain. And you and I were discussing a while back how important that is and how technology can help give that information. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think we have a huge advantage now, which we didn't have about 6, 7, 10 years ago, right? The connectivity. The tools that are at disposal today, be it various platforms like, Android smartphones, you've got tablets, you've got online internet, all of these things allow you to connect yourself with different nodes within your supply chain. What we need to do is understand how to leverage these, right? So basically going back to the visibility problem or challenge, as an enterprise, you are dealing with various nodes, both from your supply side, your own enterprise, as well as your customer side. And understanding how your inventory is distributed at any point in time across this ecosystem is vital. It's vital because it allows you to actually develop strategies around how to minimize your costs, how to maximize your gain, how to redistribute things rapidly across your ecosystem, right? So if you know, for example, that there is certain inventory lying in one stocking point and demand is at a different stocking point, if you don't get that information at the right time, you're losing out. If you get the information at the right time, you can redistribute that inventory. So it's vital. And technology today allows you to do that. It's a question of how you want to then transition from where you are today in terms of your footprint, your system's footprint, to the next footprint that you want to get to give you that visibility. That's really the big challenge that most people face.
Okay. Vineet, Jabong's earliest positioning to its customers has been around supply chain in a way. Your ads talked about free shipping, cash on delivery, 30-day free returns. What were some of your learnings from your customers during that phase?
Correct. So before I talk about the learnings from the customers, I would like to just generalize that for the entire e-commerce segment, that the initial positioning of all the e-commerce companies was around establishing trust. So introducing COD, where you don't have to pay the money until you have the product, or giving out a 30-day free return policy, or free shipping, were elements of establishing trust. Over a period of time, you would have seen e-commerce companies applying shipping charges, or applying COD charges, or reducing their number of days of returns policy. And this will rationalize over a period. So that was the first element where we were establishing trust, because e-commerce was new, people were not used to transacting online. Next, we got to shipping things as fast as possible. Then there was a race of who can do it quicker, whether Snapdeal can deliver faster, or Flipkart can deliver faster, or Jabong can deliver faster. And then it got to convenience that, okay, if you cannot return a product, we'll pick it up from your doorstep. Your returns, we'll process the returns in 24 hours instead of 7 days, and so on. And currently it has gotten down to customization, where we are saying that we can get into scheduling of deliveries, we can get into time slots that if you need it on a particular time of a particular day, we can do that. We can get into customization of gift card options, gift card messages, and so on. So that has been the trend. Across this journey, the learnings from the customer has been around. The customer wants a predictable supply chain. He needs a consistent experience. If you tell him 2 days, then you get the work done in 2 days. That race about delivering things in 4 hours, 8 hours, to a large extent was notional. I mean, you can win some brownie points in terms of marketing. At the end of the day, the customer is looking for a consistent supply chain experience. Second thing, the customer gets conditioned very, very quickly. So if you're offering service to a particular PIN code in a particular state, and for some reasons you have to stop that PIN code, the customers will come back and write about it on social media, or he'll make a complaint that you were servicing this, or you were offering me this service. Why is it that you've withdrawn this service? So the conditioning of the customer is very, very quick, and to undo that is not really possible. I mean, you just have to mitigate and work around it. And third, the customer expects you to know where the products are lying in the supply chain. Where exactly are the products, and when is he gonna get them? Regardless of whether the product has to be brought from a marketplace vendor or you've handed it over to the courier partner, the agent who's sitting in the contact center or your information systems need to know where exactly the products are. So he doesn't care if you've given it to a courier partner and it is beyond your control. The customer expects you to know because you took the company and took the order as Jabong or Amazon or Flipkart.
Mahesh, Target is possibly ahead of the curve when it comes to engaging with the customer digitally. So I would just like you to expound upon what are the learnings for the Indian retailers here.
Let me first set the context for 30 seconds for folks that don't know what Target does out of India. Right? So we are a US-based retailer. We're about $73 billion company. We do not sell in India. We do two things out of India. We source from India, from about 100 factories here for north of $1 billion. And we also have about 3,000 member team in Bangalore, and we call that our second headquarters. So that's essentially what Target's presence is in India. So that question is interesting, particularly after the previous speaker talked about how India is creating a lot of omni-channel experiences and capabilities that the West can learn from, and a lot of that is true. In fact, that's a reason that's our contribution from Bangalore of our team, and that's also the reason why we engage with startups in India. That said, though the learning cycles are very short in developing countries like India, the West had a start, and I can certainly talk about some of our own experiences, and I'll connect with some of the things that we heard in the morning. We were looking at every channel as a separate channel when we started our own multi-channel journey. But quickly we realized it is, when I look at our consumer, we call our consumer guests, our guests looked at this as multiple ways to interact with the retailer that they liked. What it meant for us is what worked well in the brick and mortar experience is not going to be the same thing that you replicate when it comes to an online platform or a mobile application. Each engagement platform has its own economies and has its own needs for the consumers, and we have to tailor that. But through all of this, there has to be a consistent theme that you're working with a consumer on their demand, when they want to shop with you, how they want to interact with you. So that was one big learning for us. Second was playing to our strengths. We have about 1,800 stores in the US, and what we've enabled a number of things. One of the things that is particular was our ability for consumers to come, our guests to come and pick up in store. They place the demand online, but they come and pick up in the store. We are not the first ones to do that, but it certainly was an eye-opener when we did that. Because what we realized is a big portion of our consumers who placed the online order that came and pick up from the store, and we have about 25% of our stores orders that are placed online gets picked up from the store. shop elsewhere. So for us, suddenly we are able to understand that 1 + 1